Okay, it's time to start the Season 10 halfway through Apex Legends gun tier list video. I'm just gonna go down the freaking line with this shit, the snipers, you know, pull out of the light heavy energy shotgun. All right, start off with the Sentinel. Sentinel, very freaking, it's okay. It's fun to use. Objectively for this game, it is not good. It's okay. Close range, it can kind of suck, and it really depends on you flicking. I'm gonna put the Sentinel at a solid freaking C tier. Charge rifle, especially on Kings Canyon. If we're talking about ranked for Kings Canyon, charge rifle is disgusting right now. Charge rifle is dummy. It's so OP for no reason. Kings Canyon is super small and like super open. It makes third parties very, very, very frequent. And with a hit scan weapon with very, very small map, easy to third party, the charge rifle is insane. If you play ranked on Kings Canyon, you're gonna see nothing but charge rifles. Put in charge rifle in general, B tier. On Kings Canyon, A tier. And the longbow. Longbow got a buff recently. I don't even think it needed a buff. I think it was pretty good beforehand, but it still does a crazy amount of damage. It's pretty solid close range. Longbow is insane iron sights. So close range, it's crazy. You do have to hit your shots with it, but it's not as necessary, or you get a little bit more room to work with because of how fast it shoots. And its hip fire is kind of nutty. Right. I say that as I miss all my shots. Longbow gets put at B minus, B plus, or A minus. At the end of the day, this is a close range game, so even if you get a knock from far away with your sniper rifles, you're gonna have to run in there and freaking fight close range. And so any of these guns are not optimal for close range fighting. All right, moving on to the light weapons. We got the RE45. The RE45 is actually not a bad gun, but I personally don't like it. But even though I don't like it, that doesn't mean it's not a good gun. If you get it off drop, you're gonna have a solid time. You're gonna be okay for the most part. It's got great hip fire, and its iron sights are okay. But if you get the digi on this thing, I think it actually makes it a lot easier to shoot. But that's just my opinion. It does shoot pretty fast, but you can put some decent attachments on it. Early game R99, exactly. I'm gonna put if I had to place the RE45, objectively speaking, regardless of my skill with it, I would place it. I'm gonna give it a solid C. I'm gonna give it a solid C, which is not bad for off drop. If we're talking about off drop only, I'm giving it a B. Now for the P2020. This one gets a flat out D tier. I'm not going to put anything in F tier because I don't believe any gun belongs in F tier. I don't think any gun is just so garbage that it's like impossible to use. P20 is close, but if you have some decent attachments for it and you have a decent aim, it's going to be okay. That's why I'm not going to put it in F tier. I don't think any gun deserves F tier. I think all guns in Apex they're pretty okay. They're pretty solid. It's okay, but it's definitely harder to hit shots with. All right, moving on. R301. R301, I'm going to put this solid A tier. Solid upper A tier. I don't think it's quite an S tier weapon, but I do think it's very strong. Solid A tier. It's really just a great all-around weapon. It's good range, good close range. You really cannot go wrong with the R301. Its recoil is relatively easy to handle. You're basically good. Its hip fire is solid. It's old reliable, you know. I don't think R301's S tier because I don't think the R301 is just insane at everything. It's just really good at everything. S tier is things that are just absolutely just freaking bananas right now. R99. R99 gets a solid A minus or B plus. I might have to move it to B plus. R9 is good, but especially base R9 is just freaking booty hole, bro. Base R9 freaking sucks. You have one bullet to miss base R9 on a purple enemy. If they have a red shield, then you cannot one mag somebody with a base R9. It just takes too many bullets to kill, and it just fires so fast. It has some pretty strong recoil, but I think the real shame is that it's got so few bullets and does so little damage, regardless of its fast fire rate. I think the R9 needs a buff. I think it's kind of weak. I'm going to put it in like B tier. Yeah, no, B tier, not A tier. A tier is too strong. The Scout, I'm putting this sucker in the A tier. This Scout is freaking a solid weapon. Even if you equip this thing the whole way, especially if you equip this thing the whole way. It's a solid weapon. It's really good at range. Its hip fire is pretty decent. I think it's a solid A tier weapon, especially if you're playing for Rizzles, especially in comp. The Scout's a dummy weapon right now, especially if you're in comp. Definitely recommend if you're a Gibby player. If you play range, Scout's the gun for you. It's freaking nutty. I would rather have a Scout for long range than one of these snipers because it does decent long range. You can control it. You can hit your shots. But when the close range fights happen, it's got nutty hip fire. That's my conclusion for the light weapons. C tier, D tier, A tier, B tier, A tier. Moving on to the heavy weapons. Let's go. Rampage. I'm gonna have to put this sucker. I'm putting the Rampage in. I'm gonna put this sucker in A tier. The Rampage is disgusting medium range. Rampage is disgusting medium range. If you have a thermite, this thing close range will absolutely just tear your opponent apart. One time I was super low and I got pushed by Diego Swords and I just melted him so fast. I was so desperate. I had no health, but the Rampage just absolutely melted him before he could like do anything to me. And its irons are freaking amazing. Like if you have to choose between a 1x and the Rampage's irons, you choose the Rampage's irons, bro. No, G7 iron sights are dog water. Frick these irons. That's one of the things holding it back. I guarantee you if the G7 had a faster rate of fire, had better irons, this thing would be S tier. It's slow close range, but honestly, the hip fire isn't even that bad on this thing. It's really hit or miss, but the hip fire is, I would say it's pretty solid. Especially because you don't have to hit that many shots. You're going to miss some shots, but you don't have to hit that many. It's got nutty irons. A tier, especially with the thermite. Thermite goes insane. The reason why it doesn't get S tier is because long range, this thing's recoil is like so much to handle. Even if you just pull down, it just goes everywhere. All right, moving on. Repeater. I think the repeater is super underrated. Freaking love the repeater. I think the repeater's got great iron sights. Especially now that you have the shatter caps buff or whatever. Although I don't really get to use it that often. It does 48 to the body. 56, my bad. I'm gonna put it low. I'm gonna give it a B-. I still think it could use some work. I don't think it's bad enough to warrant C tier, but it's definitely not good enough to warrant A tier. Or high B tier. But I do think it's good. So I'm gonna give it a B-. Before the shatter caps buff, I would have put it at C, but after that, I think it's a B-. Repeater is nutty. Honestly, if you have the flicking skills for it, you can like just shit on people so much with the repeater. If it's shot faster, then it would probably be upper B tier, maybe A tier. If you have a repeater with shatter caps, I think this thing will move up to B+. You get shotgun strafe speed. All right, next is the wing dude. I'm gonna give it a solid A-. It's got incredible strafe speed. It's got very good accuracy. Only problem is that once people get close to you, you're gonna have trouble. It's really good medium range. It's very good medium range. Pretty, close range is not bad either. It's pretty solid close range. But especially if you have the ADS and you're bad ADS in close range like me, you are gonna struggle with it. But its hip fire is honestly solid. As I miss. Wingman A-. All right, Prowler next. Prowler, I'm gonna put this thing either A+. It's either A+ or S tier. Prowler gets minimum A+. I'm gonna leave it at A+. The Prowler is a disgusting weapon. Even with the nerf, I think it's still super OP. I think it might have just moved from S tier to A+. Even then, it's still debatable. It could still definitely be an S tier weapon. The gun itself, it's very strong. It does a frick ton of damage. I'm pretty sure you can 2 or 3 burst somebody to the head. Yeah, you can 2 bursts to the head. Its recoil is solid. It's solid enough to where you can use a 2x on it and still get really good results. And it's an SMG, so you can swap really fast from it. And its hip fire is insane. Its hip fire basically just goes in a straight freaking line. Yep. Prowler is disgusting. Probably one of the best guns in the game. It definitely is better than the R9. There used to be a debate about which gun's better, but it's definitely the Prowler now. Prowler's disgusting. A+, if not S tier. All right, Hemlock. Including the Hemlock buff, I'm going to have to put the Hemlock at a solid A tier. The Hemlock used to be better. If it was back in its prime, the Hemlock would have definitely been a freaking S tier gun. But they nerfed it quite a bit. They buffed its hip fire again. And I think that moved it. I think before the nerf, before the buff with the hip fire, this thing was probably at a B-. But the hip fire now, its spread is nowhere near as bad as it used to be. And so now you can hip fire. It does so much damage. And people hip fired it a lot. Because of the hip fire buff, this thing goes to A tier. A minus to A tier. It's a really good gun, but its hipfire still isn't the greatest sometimes. It can get still pretty unreliable sometimes, but besides that, it's pretty much very strong at everything. Even the single fire is pretty solid. If you have like a longer range sight on it, then it does quite a bit of damage. Its recoil is not that bad. You just have to worry about bullet drop. And once you compensate for bullet drop, you can like be freaking mean as hell to people. This thing's single fire is honestly pretty freaking good. But I would not recommend using freaking single fire close range. You're not gonna have a good time. Is the Hemlock hipfire back to what it was before the nerf, or just improved? It's just improved. It's not as good as it was. Flatline. Flatline, as much as I want to give it an S tier, I'm giving it an A+. One reason alone. It's the recoil. This thing's recoil hits so freaking hard, it's unnecessary. But if you can handle the recoil fine, then it turns into an S tier weapon. If you want to do circles, that works too. In general, for the everyday player, the flatline is an A+. But if you're skilled with the flatline, if you can control it, S tier. If a barrel attachment were ever to be introduced with the flatline, it'd be game over. It would be game over. It'd be insane. Its hipfire is absolutely just monstrous. ADS is solid as long as you can control it. That was bad. Default ADS. So it depends on the skin you have. If you have the battle pass skin like me, it's got really good iron sights. Half the time I would rather have iron sights than a 1x on this thing. But if you don't have the good battle pass skin, then its iron sights aren't the greatest. In the hands of any skilled player, it's an S tier weapon. In the hands of your regular casual, is an A+. Okay, moving on to the energy weapons. Volt, S tier. Volt automatically S tier gun. The Volt does 15 damage a shot compared to the freaking R9's like 11 or something. Base Volt, 285 damage. That means you can one mag a red shield and have two leftover shots. A purple shield, you're gonna have at least like 5 or 6. The Volt is such a good gun. Its recoil is freaking easy. You basically just pull down. That's all you need to do. It literally just goes straight up. Hold on, let's see what the bigger magazine. You just pull straight up and then go to the left at the very end. All you really need to do is just pull down. For the most part, you're going to be using it from relatively close ranges, so it doesn't even matter at all. Your 1x and your digi, I think, are really good on the Volt, especially if you're a control player. If you're a control player, the Volt's really good for you. And it's got insane reload time. It can honestly be used like as an AR. Like it does a decent amount of damage from a long range. Put a slap of 2x on this thing and you're basically Gucci. And the iron sights are freaking amazing. Devotion, you get a solid C+. B tier. I'm gonna give it a B tier. Realist, B minus. C+ or B minus. With turbo, this thing's S tier. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a B. It's a solid B tier. No, with turbo, I'm gonna give it an A minus. Without it, I'm gonna give it just a B, just a regular B. The recoil is okay. All you have to really do is just hold down and like pull left. But it's so rare to find a turbocharger that like there's no point. It shreds, but you cannot ADS. If you ADS, you're frick. B tier. With turbocharger, S tier. Not S tier. Pretty high A. If you can move faster with it, then that'd be a whole different story. Its recoil is not even that bad. Its iron sights are garbage though. Freaking trash iron sights. All right, Havoc. Havoc does an insane amount of damage. Its recoil is kind of crazy. It used to be a lot less. The Havoc used to be the gun that everybody went to sleep and had nightmares about. The Havoc used to be so meta. It used to be so crazy in season 4. It was not fun. Its recoil is its biggest problem. There is just a lot of recoil, a lot of horizontal recoil. No, not really. Did they buff the Havoc? The frick? The Havoc melts. If you hit your shots with this thing, this Havoc absolutely melts. Havoc's hipfire is honestly freaking great. Havoc hipfire shreds. If you have a turbo, then this thing still sucks long range, but Havoc B tier weapon. With turbocharger, B+. It's really bad at longer ranges. If it was better at longer ranges, I would give this Havoc an A. But right now it's B. Long range just sucks ass, even if you control the recoil fine. All right, moving on to the next gun. L-Star. L-Star gets an S tier from me. L-Star is absolutely insane. Its hipfire is crazy. and does an unreasonable amount of damage per bullet. And you can technically fire this thing forever. Just stop shooting for like a second. And now that you can put a barrel mod on it, this thing is absolutely nuts. This is insane. All you basically have to do is just pull right and then pull straight down. Look at the way it kicks. It just kicks to the left and then goes straight up. It's got the dummy easy recoil. The recoil is a little bit too easy. This thing's range is also nuts. You can absolutely just tear people up from long range with this thing. It's like, think of it like a 301. If you have a barrel on this thing just absolutely shreds. Assuming you don't suck like me. Love everyone was trashing on the L-Star only a couple months ago, and now it just melts people like it got the last laugh. Yes, 100%. 100%. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Yeah, no. So this thing was absolutely just like terrible. And then now you can see easier with it. And a barrel with the barrel on, it's easier. Recoil is easier to control. Its hip fire is insane. If you could put a digi on this thing, this would be nuts. Used to be able to back in the day. L-Star, definitely S tier. Its iron sights are pretty meh. They're okay. Definitely rather have a sight on it. All right, moving on. The bow. So I'm gonna have to give it a solid C+. It's definitely usable, but close range, you have to be a freaking god at flicking. That's the only way it's gonna be usable. You can definitely make the bow work. There's not a gun in this game that you can't make work, but you have to be very skilled with it. I think the bow is very, very weak close range. Medium to long range, like it's good at medium range. Long range is a little tough. Bow, C tier. I think there are better things to use if you want to shoot it from medium range. Like you can use a Volt, you can use an L-Star. You can pretty much use any other like AR in this game. Those guns have, not only do they have decent medium to long range, but they can also compensate when you get into close range fights. Whereas if you have a bow, you're gonna struggle. The freaking shadow caps, ass. Don't use these. With the shadow, actually the shadow cap's got a buff. C+. I'm giving it a C+. I think it's the highest ranking C tier weapon. Okay, moving on to the shotguns. The Mozambique. Mozambique is a pretty freaking solid weapon. These 2 extra shots do quite a bit. It can do 43 from range, which is actually kind of insane. In general, if you are playing for realsies, if you are playing to win and to kill people, especially endgame, the Mozambique is probably not the gun for you. It's good. I don't think it's bad anymore, but there are definitely better options. Mozambique, I'm putting B-. Mozambique, a solid B-, if not C+. It's better than the D tier back in the day. Its iron sights are kind of freaking disgusting, but it can shoot fast, and its hip fire is not that bad. I'm putting it at C tier. C tier. All right, Peacekeeper. Peacekeeper is a solid A tier weapon. You can do 99 a shot. I'm gonna give it an A-, either an A- or a B+. I might have to go with B+ on this one. Its hip fire is almost irrelevant. No, sorry. You only need to hip fire it. You do not need to ADS if you're close range. There's no reason to ADS. I actually think the choke gets in the way, and I think the choke's annoying. But if you want to go for a little bit longer distance, you can use the choke. Although it doesn't like go as far as you want it to. Unfortunately. I think the Peacekeeper's hip fire is actually just insane. That's what's keeping the Peacekeeper alive, is the hip fire. The fact that it can do 99 close range, that's disgusting. And it's got the shotgun strafe speed, so 99 completely to the body. If you want to do all headshots, it can do 120. Peacekeeper's solid. I'm gonna give it a B+. B+. I think it's very strong. Mastiff. No, I'm gonna give the Mastiff and PK both A-. They're A-. Mastiff is great. It's personally the shotgun that I like the most, that I'm the best with. Only problem with the Mastiff is that hip fire, it's okay. It's not the greatest, but if you ADS, this thing turns into a tank. You shoot faster with the Mastiff than the PK, but the hip fire and the hip fire strafe is not something that you can get. If you really want to dodge bullets, what you got to do with the Mastiff is you got to shoot, strafe, shoot, and then un-ADS and strafe. The Mastiff is really good though. I think it can do quite a lot of damage. It has got a faster fire rate than the PK. What makes the PK better, in my opinion, is that the strafe speed you get from just ADSing, not hip firing. The hip fire of the PK is so good, and the hip fire and the Mastiff is just so trash in comparison. That's the only reason why I think the PK is superior. So I'm gonna give the PK an A-, Mastiff B+. That's final. I know it's swap back and forth, but that's the final shit. All right. And then the last gun in the gun tier list is the Eva S tier weapon. This thing could put out so much damage so freaking fast that it's actually nuts. And its reload is much faster than the Mastiff. Even with the nerf, I would still put the Eva at S tier. You put this thing with the purple bolt, bro, the Eva's going on top. You could melt somebody way faster. The reality is that people are going to be strafing, right? They're going to be strafing. They're going to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So the reality is you're going to miss shots, right? You're going to miss shots with every shotgun you use. The thing is, what is more punishing when you miss shots? The Eva, Mastiff, or PK? It's the PK and Mastiff, right? Those are way more punishing. So the Eva allows you to miss more shots because A, it shoots so fast, and B, it has a really fast reload. And its hipfire is amazing. What's also so good about the Eva is that you don't need to ADS with it. There is almost no reason to ADS with the Eva unless you're a Gibby. Unless you're a Gibby, or if you're a controller player and you want some extra aim assist because it narrows your field of view, then that's the only reason why you should be ADSing with the Eva. When you combo with another gun, say the Wingman, it can be a free sight holder. So normally you would have like a 1x on it, or a Digi, or iron sights, right? You want to bang, 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 but all of a sudden, oh, they're a little far away, right? Just swap to your 2x and then throw some poke shots, right? And then once you get close again, just swap back to your 1x and then hip fire your Eva. The Eva is freaking nuts. It's a free sight holder. It's just absolutely just the GOAT of this game. They didn't nerf it enough, in my opinion. I think it does. It's way too powerful still. But other than that, it's an S tier. So the S tiers were Eva, L-Star, and the Volt. The guns that come very close to S tier are the Flatline and then the R301. Those are the only guns that come close to S tier. Those two guns, the Flatline and R301, those are the ones that are A+. Those are the ones that are borderline S tier. If they receive any buff of any kind, they are automatically going to S tier. Hemlock is not good enough to be S tier. Its hipfire is not the greatest. If its hipfire was better, it would be S tier. I tried to decide this regardless of my skill with the gun. Like the repeater, I love the repeater. I think it's a great gun, but just because I'm good with it doesn't mean it objectively is or deserves to be above B+. Oh, Prowler. Prowler is A+. Prowler is A+, borderline S. And people could argue that it is S tier. Like that's fair. I don't think it is. I think it's really, really close, but you know, some people might have that opinion, and that's like, I can see where they're coming from.